welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Alex,
And I'm Cam.
and today we're reviewing the fourth album from The Weeknd, After Hours. Fourth album, it could be seventh project because there's the mixtapes as well. He had the EP, My Dear Melancholy. Whatever else, this is his newest project and had a lot of hype around it compared to some of his other ones. Pretty much justified from the start because of the opening lead singles Heartless and Blinding Lights, released back in, I think, late October. Just a lot of hype around this. People intrigued by the slight stylistic change he had going, or the dark music videos. For whatever reason, there was a lot of excitement surrounding this album. I've been a fan of his for, or I'd say, around 5 years. I think I remember Can't Feel My Face getting a lot of airplay on the radio and just thinking, yeah, this is a really catchy, memorable song. And back then I had limited appreciation for pop music in general, which has since dramatically changed. So that album, Beauty Behind the Madness, I still have a reasonable appreciation for it. And then my fandom for him sort of continued into Starboy the next year. I still think the title track and I Feel It Coming are two of the best songs of the last decade. And yeah, I've just generally kept an eye out for other songs or features he's had. I was definitely excited for this album, and I would say, just before I go deeper into it, I think it, on the whole, delivered for me quite a lot. I'd say this is probably his best album. Cam?
I would definitely agree that this is his best album so far. Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience with The Weeknd as you up to a point.
Yeah.
I really liked the singles from Beauty Behind the Madness. I love Can't Feel My Face to this day, and In the Night, I think, is my second favorite.
Oh yeah, that's a great song.
I was never in love with The Hills, but at least it was, weird enough that I had to respect it.
True.
I don't, nothing else like that has gotten onto the radio in recent years, I don't think.
And I did mention it earlier, but often I like that song as well.
Yeah, that one's alright. Then I bought the album on the strength of those songs, and honestly, it was kind of disappointing. If I have ever listened to Trilogy or Kissland, it's been years, and I don't remember anything of what they were like, except maybe a vague impression of them being kind of similar in style and tone to Beauty Behind the Madness.
Yeah.
And so, because that album was kind of disappointing, even though I was really intrigued by the idea of him collaborating with Daft Punk for Starboy.
Your excitement was kind of muted, at least at that point, for Starboy.
Yeah, and it had mixed reception on its own, so that album just completely passed me by.
Really, I thought it had significantly more critical praise than Beauty Behind the Madness, but that's just my own untangled thoughts from a few years ago, to be fair.
Yeah, so who knows? I let it pass me by, and then just full disclosure before we get into After Hours. Since then I've only listened to Starboy and his last EP once each. So I haven't fully solidified my thoughts on those, and then there might be some things about his evolution as an artist and a songwriter that could apply to those two releases as much as they do to After Hours. So I guess everything that I'm going to say here should probably be taken with a grain of salt.
Even though he's always been a bit of a darker in mood and tone and subjects explored and themes delved into artist, I'd say My Dear Melancholy definitely began a sort of significantly darker in tone sound for him on the whole. And even though I would say this is his best album, I wouldn't say it's because of a significant upheaval of his sound. If you didn't like The Weeknd before, this album probably, even though it's definitely his best album, I don't think it would actually change people's opinions too much, even though it's much stronger material. If you don't like his voice before, if you can't stand his falsetto style of singing, I don't think this album will change your mind. I will say, however, I just think this is his best album just because he has some of the best written and performed songs of his career on it, and the production is amazing. He has producers ranging from Max Martin to Oneatrix Point Never, who is quite a big range just in of itself, because he is more of a eclectic cult musician more than someone you'd really think the Weeknd would approach. But then again, the connections there from him soundtracking Uncut Gems and the Weeknd appearing in that as well. So he's definitely got a lot of connections. You would not expect a song with those two people and a songwriting credit from Elton John on the same album, but he has managed it on here. I'd just say this is his best set of songs. I'd say it's sequenced and structured really well. I'm amazed by all of the beat structuring and the way he sings these songs. This album feels like a journey, man. It feels like an adventure from the start to the end for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is really fantastic, really well sequenced set of songs, great hooks. I've never had a problem with his voice personally.
Yeah,
Like he's never really been into doing like sensitive, nice guy kind of songs along with all the hedonism.
not really.
Some people have said that like the pitch of his voice kind of doesn't sell him as a sex god or a sex, drugs, and rock and roll type. But I've never had a problem understanding what he was going for in spite of his voice. More of the same vocal style on this album doesn't bother me at all.
I'd say, just to summarize before we go into specific songs, I'd say this is similar to like Lana Del Rey on her last album. I wouldn't say this is a major stylistic shift to warrant a significant amount of critical praise like he's getting for this album. I'd just say this is like the best realized version of himself. Everything he's done before culminating into this. Now you probably get people who still prefer his first few mixtapes, which is completely fair, but I feel like even those people who don't like his more mainstream stuff can appreciate this on some level. So
Yeah.
okay, so like we were saying, the structuring of this album, I'd say, is its best secret weapon, I'd say, because you'd think with an album like this that already has major hits like Heartless and Blinding Lights, you'd have them at the start of the album, right?
Yeah.
But no, Heartless is track 7, Blinding Lights is track 9. The title track was released as a sort of promotional song, but not a single. Like, could you imagine a radio station playing the title track?
No. But at the same time, like I said before, I couldn't really imagine radio stations playing The Hills, so this guy can get away with stuff most other people probably couldn't.
That's true. And even though I could not see it as a sort of bona fide hit, the title track is an amazing song. So I'm glad we got to hear that early, and that definitely solidified an enduring amount of hype that the first two singles generated earlier last year. Again, before we go into the songs, we can talk about the sort of themes explored here. So The Weeknd is his stage name. You were saying that's like his persona, Cam?
Yeah.
The Weeknd is not Abel, but there are definitely aspects of his real life experiences of fame and sort of loneliness and disillusionment within fame in the industry that play into the songs here. They kind of feel like the most personal and autobiographical to a degree of his career, I'd say. Like, this album definitely tells a story of wanting fame, wanting everything, but then getting it. And even though he has everything he dreamed of back in Canada, but moving to LA, moving to this industry and being one of its biggest stars is, surprise, surprise, not all it cracked up to be. And this is a rich, detailed illumination, exploration of how this factored into his life, basically. And it gets pretty dark and lonely at times, and this is reflected in how the songs sound, I'd say.
It's always interesting dealing with artists who write semi autobiographically and also write in character because like I feel like I can't trust exactly how much of I feel like it's not fair to assume that like everything that he writes is completely autobiographical because like if he really was the kind of person that he claims to be in his songs, like A, he would never have time to write or record any music, and B, I feel like we would have heard about him getting in more trouble with the law because of just like all the
Yeah,
drugs and all the trouble that the character gets into and all of this. And like he's not like I don't think he has a rap sheet like some of the, classic rock guys ever did.
I don't think so.
And so like that's always been kind of a weird sticking point that I've had with his stuff is like how much of it is serious, how much of it is just flipping his own experiences into fiction writing, and like how much does any of that actually matter in the first place.
I think it plays into the album cover a little bit because it's such a weird image, don't you think?
Yeah, like is he a vampire or did he just get socked in the nose and the teeth or whatever?
Well, I kind of see it as he has a sort of weird, elated look where he's like ecstatic, but he's also like obviously protruding sort of blood-soaked face. So it's like he is like ecstasy looking type of face, but he's also it's like showing all of the pain inside as well. Maybe that's deeper than it really is. I mean, that's pretty much a literal representation of how he looks in the music videos as well. So maybe it's not as deep as I'm thinking of it.
Like not knowing how much of his stuff is meant to be like sincere and how much of it is meant to just be real and how much of it is fictional just kind of threw me off balance when listening to his music. And but
Yeah,
at the same time I have to remind myself that, you don't need everything to be literal and you don't need real life accurately represented. It's art. You need to take artistic liberties and you can write whatever you want. The character, if it is a character or if it's him or whatever, just kind of feels inconsistent. Like he's constantly talking about how he's like completely mired in sex and drugs and all
yeah.
kinds of other hedonistic actions. Then there's also songs about him like regretting it and wanting to get out of it. And it's like, okay, so how much of it is true? What am I supposed to think of this persona? And I've always had trouble just marrying those two thoughts in my head, on at least on Beauty, because like I didn't really love the music there. I was like, if the songs were stronger and if I liked the music more, then I wouldn't care as much. I would be more willing to give a little bit more as a listener, and that's like what this album is doing for me. There's so much great melodies and so much great production on this album, and like we said, the sequencing is amazing. So I'm willing to like give his vision a little more benefit of the doubt, I guess.
So the way this is sequenced is pretty genius, and I think you probably see the album in a slightly different way from me, obviously, because our brains are wired differently. I kind of always, whenever I listen to this, sort of group the first four songs together immediately. These songs are definitely some of the strongest for the beats sequencing and structuring. Like some of these instrumentals could definitely almost exist as songs without the Weeknd. There's enough good stuff going on with the beats and the keyboard lines and the sort of synth stuff in the background that they could almost exist as sort of Aphex Twins songs.
Yeah, that's my thought exactly.
Yeah, they're like deep and complex and dense enough that they're solid enough on their own anyway, and that definitely goes to like the people like Max Martin and the other producers producing really well. It's these songs like Alone Again, Too Late, Hardest to Love and Scared to Live. These are songs I think where he's at his most lonely, just from the title, like Alone Again. These songs are also represented musically as well by just how dark and slow they are. Like these are not upbeat songs, I'd say. They are maybe pop adjacent, but they're not poppy songs like Scared to Live kind of is, especially because of how the chorus comes in when the beats leave, which gives more focus to the chorus again. But on the whole, these songs kind of sound a little bit similar to me as well. Like they're all distinctly different, like constructed and written pretty similarly. As a sort of like 12-minute block of songs, I think they open up the album really well. And then I'd sort of group Snow Child and Escape from LA as a sort of 1-2 symbiotic song where they almost feel like the same song because they pretty much have the exact same subject matter. It's like he has fame, he has everything he wanted, all the hedonistic sort of activities that you were talking about, he has all of that, but he also reveals that this is nothing to him. On Escape to LA, he talks about how he has everything, but he means nothing without this girl, and he obviously wants to escape from LA. And Snowchild like looks back to how life was before he had everything and talks about how he wanted to go back to that life as well. So I sort of group those two together, but I suppose you could group them as a wider net with the first six because the real change happens with, I'd say, Heartless. That sort of has more of a rap, sideways to rap production. Like Metro Boomin produces this, and you could definitely just see this being a rap song. He almost does rap it, but I love that song anyway. But yeah, this is sort of where it's starting to get more poppy, I'd say, which comes full force with Blinding Lights. Like Blinding Lights, In Your Eyes, and Save Your Tears are just three great pop songs sequenced in sort of the third quarter of the album, which is not where you'd want the catchiest songs on the album to be. And then sort of the others are sort of like the dark closing songs. I don't know. That's kind of how I see the songs structured in my head. Very loose description of that.
Yeah, I think you've put a little bit more thought into that than I have because I was still trying to like work on my full take on the sequencing after my last listen because I was kind of seeing it as like so it's 14 songs, so the easiest way to kind of separate that is like the first seven and the second seven, and like it's not a perfect break in mood or theme because like Faith is
No.
still kind of darker. But I was thinking it's like you got all these like darker, moodier songs, maybe a little more introspective and
Yeah.
a little like way more depressing and like terrible things that would be just like you would think that someone was absolutely psychotic if they said them in real life, like in Faith where he says, if I OD, I want you to OD right beside me.
Yeah.
Like that's
And even just most of Heartless as well. Like, but then again, when that released as a single, people were like a bit confused because it is just like a unflattering portrayal of himself. Like, but it's also in character, and when you think of the way it's sequenced into the album, it's like he's put a shell around himself, and this is like how he's acted to try and cope with how he is,
mm-hmm.
kind of.
Yeah, so like you got roughly the first half of the album is like that, and then you get that's like it's an absolutely brilliant move to put Blinding Lights right there after Faith because then it like picks up for like two or three songs, and you get like some
Yeah,
great '80s production in contrast to the like '90s IDM like we were saying of some of the earlier songs, and then like the definite more modern alt R&B type sounds of those tracks, and then it picks up for a couple, and then yeah, it does start to fade down a little bit more toward the end, and then you got even another very depressing song with the closer Until I Bleed Out.
yeah, that sort of brings things full circle again. This album is not first track to last track chronological. It's like a circle of sad existence with a brief look of happiness.
Yep, the Weeknd's The Wall.
Yeah. Oh, really? So we'll go into those three pop songs because I feel like those are the ones that we'd naturally gravitate towards the most just at any given time,
Yeah,
just because they're easier to approach and less depressing, as you say. Blinding Lights is one of the best hit pop songs of recent times, I'd say. It just comes thundering in with an explosion of synths that sound like they come straight from like 1983 radio. Again, have to mention 80s nostalgia is lasting longer than the 80s.
when it's this good, who cares?
Yep, exactly. When it's this good, this could just be dropped into an 80s retro radio station and it would fit in perfectly, pretty much. This has a fully fledged amazing chorus to it, but it also has like the requisite sort of replacement for a beat drop part with the synths after the chorus. So that kind of made it viable to be a hit as well as just being ridiculously catchy. Yeah, this is like almost the best song I think he's ever put out. I've heard it like 40 times, honestly, on the radio.
Wow,
It is a number one single in the UK.
nice.
It's
It
huge.
deserves it. Yeah, like it's so nice to have like old style pop songs again.
It is, and I've seen people at my work who are not even fans of new music in any form. They love this song, and it's easy to see why. And then it goes into In Your Eyes, which I'm pretty sure could be another huge hit, like further down the line. Again, it's just a really upbeat, happy love song, kinda. Like he sees things in her eyes, but he doesn't let it define her. It doesn't. It's kind of as sweet a love song as you'll ever get from The Weeknd, pretty much. Like even when there's moments of doubt, he doesn't let it bother him. And on this album, this is a shining beacon of light. And we've got to mention the great use of saxophone towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm picking up a theme that saxophone might be one of your favourite instruments, Cam.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And we like Save Your Tears as well, right?
Yep, great song.
So after Save Your Tears, which I guess could also be a hit, even though that may be pushing it. I was thinking, okay, I've heard After Hours, the title track before. How is it going to go from, still a fairly, considerate, romantic almost song, Save Your Tears, into one of the most bleak, oblique songs I've ever heard, After Hours? Well, maybe ever heard's a bit of an exaggeration, but how is it going to go from there? I don't know how to explain the interlude, to be honest. It kills all of the upbeatness that the other three songs had, but also transitions really well into the title track.
And it's an interlude that's the length of a full song. It's like, watch out, we got Kendrick over here.
Yeah, it is the short. It's not actually the shortest song on the album. Until I Bleed Out is shorter, so and it's also like an interlude that's kind of still a song. So, what do you think of the title track, which I guess is the most notable song on here? I don't know if it's an experiment because he's like Escape from LA is not that different from it, and he's definitely done songs like this, I think, on his mixtapes, but it's definitely a big departure from his general alternative R&B pop stuff.
So the title track is 6 minutes long. It's like one of the longest on the album, right?
Yeah, equal length to Escape from LA.
Yeah, and like the first 2 minutes of it are kind of like what I would have expected from, like a pre Starboy Weekend song. And then it like kind
Yeah.
of picks up a little bit, and it's still moody, but it's got a little bit more of a beat to it, and some more synth things going on underneath that really help carry it.
It gets more up tempo, but doesn't get any more upbeat,
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah, I think this actually has some of his best singing ever on it. And if you're not a fan, you might be like thinking he's doesn't exactly have particularly better vocal takes song to song. He's pretty much the same. But no, I think this song has explores depths to his voice that I haven't heard before. Like this song is like an exploration of a relationship that's went wrong, and he's trying to understand why it went wrong, and he kind of realizes towards the end it was his fault, but he doesn't think the relationship would break down anymore. It's kind of the vibe I got from it. Like it feels like a culmination of the depressing opening tracks, and then a little bit, especially with the synth up tempo upheaval of the more pop songs. To me, just a really really solid song. And then Until I Bleed Out is just really depressing again.
Well, now that I'm rereading the lyrics, it seems a little more like optimistic, kind of like this is going back. You remember when I said that like the last or one weird song from Poppy's album, "Bite Your Own Teeth,"
Yeah,
like how that just sounds like the kind of thing that a metal band would say to sound intimidating, but if you actually know the context, it's actually weirdly the most optimistic song on it.
sure, I remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, like this is kind of like this. Like it's kind of like he's trying to exercise himself of whoever he's talking to or whatever he's talking about in the song. Like if it's an ex, because a lot of press about the album seems to think that it's about his relationship with Bella Hadid, and so it's like he's trying to. Chorus says, "I want to cut you out of my dreams till I'm bleeding out." So metaphorical question mark.
Yeah, maybe.
But either way, it's a fitting end to the album, at least.
Yeah, and then Until I Bleed Out is sort of like a coda which brings everything full circle to the first couple of depressing songs. What would you give this album, Cam?
I am pretty comfortable giving this one an 8 out of 10. I think it's, like I said, if any of our discussions of, how his storytelling or production style has shifted, and this album can also apply to Starboy or My Dear Melancholy, then, take everything we've said with a grain of salt. But just for what it is, it's like we've been saying, it's his best collection of songs with his best production. Maybe there's something to be said about the fact that there's no guest artists on it, that like maybe he felt like he could carry it all on his own, and he knocked it way out of the park. I think that this is a great album, and if he continues in this direction, next one could be as good or even better.
I have to agree, this is a great album. I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. If you're a fan of his, you probably already have heard this and love it. If you're not, well, there's some aspects of the production and songwriting that may endear him more to you. I think this is, like you say, his best collection of songs, his best songwriting. I would say his best production style. Like, say, some of the instrumental tracks alone justify a good long listen. So many different aspects to tear apart and, sit with and let gestate with you. Not much else to say other than what we said already. Just a damn good album, and I would say his best.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers, everybody. If you like this video, consider leaving us a like and subscribe if you want to see more of our album reviews. You can follow us on Twitter at _Busted Speakers. You can follow me on Twitter at SubProspector. Check us out on Facebook. And we will see you all next time. Bye.
See ya.